I just can't believe it, guys. The gauge is now working. It's working, bro. I don't know how. Well, I do, but I don't know how. Well, today I'm not actually working, so I dedicated my time to finish the golf. What I'm aiming to do is fix the wiring, the whole wiring. I'm not going to look at the specific place. So the total aim of today is to make sure that the wiring is 100% and is the way it's supposed to be. As I have said on the other videos, that I'm not going to rest until I'm done with the wiring. I have already went ahead and did majority of things, but I haven't fixed anything yet. When I bought the car was not even charging. So I jumped it, or I hacked it, or I breached it so that it could charge. What I've done is that I've taken this wire over here straight from the alternator to the battery, which will charge the battery, but also the warning light must be connected to the alternator. That's what I did, so the car keeps on charging. So today I went ahead and checked the wiring, if the wiring is the way it's supposed to. So I found that the alternator wiring was cut, so now I'm going to put it back where it's supposed to. Even the warning light of the battery, I'm going to put it back where it's supposed to, and I have found the wiring over here. I'm also not really sure if I'm going to post this video because majority of you guys are not really interested in wiring, but I'm going to try to show you as much as possible what I'm doing and what's really happening with the car and the wiring and stuff, because I usually do my wiring, I take the whole wiring loom and start it from scratch to make it almost as factory. Here we have this power wiring. So this is the one that is responsible in terms of giving the whole car power. As you can see, I have a fuse that I have in my hand, which is the issue because it is broken on the inside and it's responsible for this not having power. And as you can see, this has a lot of wiring that is supposed to give it power. Also, this one is supposed to give this part power, which has to do with the fuel pump. So the fuel pump will not work if this is not working. So the previous owner, or the person that owned this car before me, decided to breach it with with this wire over here. Where is it? With this wire over here. So he breached it with this wire over here. So I don't really like breaching. Jumped it, or I hacked it, or I breached it so that it could charge. I don't really like breaching because there's no fuse between. As you can see, there's no fuse between. So this might get burned, or if something goes wrong, this might get burned. So I removed it. Now the car won't start at all because of this. But the solution is to replace this fuse and everything will go back to the way it was. And the reason for this fuse to blow is unknown, and we're going to find out. We're going to try to find the issue of, or the real reason why this fuse has blown. If you're interested in the wiring of this Golf, or you want to see what will happen after I'm done with this wiring, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, and do not forget to share the video. Before I get too deep into the video, I just want to say everything that I'm doing here, do not do it at home. If you want to do it at home, it's not my responsibility, and I would say that I'm not responsible for anything because this wiring, I'm just doing it myself. I don't know if you have the ability to do wiring yourself or not. So the wiring that I'm going to do is very much different from yours. So I don't require you to copy me if you do not know any wiring. So I suggest that you reach to someone who has the ability to do the wiring themselves, and maybe if they see my video, they will have a guide or a light of what's actually happening. So without any further ado, let me get back to the wiring. I have already started with the wiring. Aim was to try to understand where each wiring is supposed to go. Decided to start with the alternator wiring. On the original wire that is supposed to go from the alternator to the battery, which was routed to the starter. What I had to do is follow the route of the wires, which also helped me find the warning wire light. Since I found both of the wires of the alternator, I'm not yet going to connect them. What I'm going to do is try to understand which wire is for which part, and understand everything about the wiring and every location that the wiring is supposed to be. After understanding the dots, I'm going to try to connect the dots and make sure that the wiring is 100% What I've discovered is that everything leads to these two fuses, which gives power to almost everything in the interior of the car. I also discovered that there is a wire that is giving power consistently to the lights, which I have decided to cut, and then I'm going to try to relocate it to a better position. Since we already know that one fuse is blown, we need to purchase another fuse and two relays. Each of these two wires provide power for. Those relays are responsible for the fuel pump and the wipers. So I ended up going to Midas and I only found the fuse, not the relays. The relays, they said they don't have those relays, so I didn't want to go to town. So I decided to go ahead and do the rear tail light because they were always lighting consistently. The rear light, the indicator is not working, as we know we need a control box, and the reverse light is working perfectly. These lights are always on consistently, and the brake light works sometimes it doesn't, and this light also works. On this side, the light works sometimes it doesn't work. The reason for that is because of the original plug. So what I did, I cut off the original plugs because they were malfunctioning. Sometimes the rear light will not work at all, sometimes it will work because of this. I decided to come up with a solution, and here's my solution. I have accomplished so far. I've taken the whole light assembly off. I have cut some wires and found some terminals and plugged them to the assembly. I tried to match the wire colors to the original wire colors. The red wire is for the brake light, black and the white is for the reverse light, green and yellow is for the park light, and the black is for the brake light also. The brown cable is for the ground. This is another update. I wish I had somebody to hold the camera for me, but I have no one. So I want to show you guys what I did. And this plug is, I don't know, is the original one, but I think they have messed up the way it was plugged. I think somebody has went through with this, but I'm not entirely sure. So let me show you how everything now works. So here's the ground, is this one, that is the ground, and here's the light. When you turn on the light should be on. And for a Golf Mark 1, this one is the light, and it is also the brake light, and this one is also the light. This one goes consistently because you can see on the inside it doesn't have two bulbs just like this one. This one has two on the inside, this one only has one, which means it's either being used for the brake or being used for the rear light. So I prefer to have the rear light than to have the brake light. So the rear light will be more visible and the brake light will also be more visible. So what I've managed to do is take the wire from the headlight to cross it from to here, so that this light will work. Because on this plug, the first one, we don't have anything over there, we don't have anything in there, and here there was nothing. So I'm going, everything works from this side. Let me show you. So here is the light, so I'm going to switch it on. So now it's on. As you can see there, both of the lights are on. That one is on and that one is also on. And we have a switch. This one is for the brake switch, and we have this one is the wire for the brake switch, and here is the brake switch. The brake switch does work. I thought it doesn't, but it does work, because right now if I push it down, it does come back. You see, down, and it does come back. So let's plug it in. You can see that we have two lights over there. So let's plug this in and see what's going to happen. So the switch is in, as you can see. So, and here it means the brake is on, and as you can see, the brake is on. Now I'm turning it off, on, off, on, off. So like it works. You see, now it's on, off, on, off, on, off, on. So it does work. So that's the way I'm going to let it be. So now I'm going to do the same thing as I did on this side, on the other side. So let me turn it off. I'm going to do the same thing as I did from this side on the other side, and the rear light will work 100%, and the only thing that will be left is the indicators. And the indicators, as you know guys, if you have been following the channel, you know I have a problem with the control box, but I was always thinking of bypassing it. So I'm going to see how I'm going to bypass it, but I think I'm going to do it the same way as they do the Toyotas. So the way they do the Toyotas, I'm going to do the Golf, so that the light, the indicators light or the turning lights will work perfectly. So the rear light work 100%, and now I'm determined to drive this car even late at night because the rear light works. So the only thing that will not be working at the back is the indicators. So I'm going to try to do the indicators, but I cannot without the control box. But for now, what I'm going to try to do is do the gauge, the petrol gauge. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I'm going to try to make it work. So as you can see from under here, this is where the fuel tank is, and this is the plug for the gauge. I already unplugged this, so it's not really the issue. So since we are done with the rear, I haven't put everything back or taped everything the way it's supposed to, but for now let's focus on the petrol gauge. If I get the petrol gauge right, then I think we are on to the sound system of the car, because I think majority of things I already done them and they work perfectly. But for now, let's focus on this. I managed to get the petrol gauge out, and as I look at it, I don't see any issue, and every time when I start the car, it always says it is full. To the theory, the way it's supposed to go is that when I start the car, it goes up like that, which is not true because I know the car is not full. And when I look at the petrol gauge, I do not see any issue at all. I think the issue is either the petrol gauge itself or the wiring. The petrol gauge still goes up only when I connect the two wires, and those two wires I don't see any problem. They're all receiving power the way they're supposed to, and the gauge receives power the way it's supposed to. So I want to see what's really happening, so I decided to remove the whole dashboard. So now I'm going to remove the whole dashboard. I already moved the cluster. Now it's time for the whole dashboard to go out. So I'm going to remove the top part of the dashboard. Then I'm going to do the wires. The reason for all of this is that I want to drive this car knowing that I have a fuel gauge, that I know that the rear light are working, the brake light is working, knowing that all the wires are working will put me at rest and will be able to make this car a daily, because it is fuel sufficient. So I need to ensure that it is my daily, so that I could be able to save some money to fix the other project. So now I'm going to focus. I'm going to take all of my energy. I'm going to put it on wiring. I know I can do it, and I'm going to do it. I'm just going to update you guys on everything that I do. So stay tuned. Now that the dashboard is out again, we can fully see what's happening with the wires and try to figure out how to get the gauges work. We have the rear light now working fine. That's a win. Now we have the gauge that we need to do, which I'm not really hopeful for, because to do it you need a control box, and I totally cannot find a control box. The ones that I do find are expensive. I don't feel like I should spend that much money for a control box that only works for two things. It might work for other things, but for me, I'm looking for the gauge and the indicators, and that's it. If I have the gauge and the indicators, I think I'll be able to drive the car with no problem. So right now, what I'm going to do is try to find the gauge. As you can see from here, the clock are on. I only plugged one plug from that side, and this one from this side, I even plugged it. I just want to show you guys that those wires are not really working, are the ones that are giving me a problem. So I'm going to try to start the car. I'm going to put the car on, and we're going to see the gauge will still move even though I haven't plugged anything. Well, it's not moving. The reason that it's not moving is because of this. So let me plug this. That is plugged. Now let me turn it off and then turn it on. Still not moving. Maybe this plug I need to plug it. Maybe this plug I need to plug it so we can see what's really gonna happen. So this is the second day. I don't know if I should say it's the second day or the third day of me doing the wiring. So yesterday we were busy with the rear lights, and everything seemed to work. Everything. When I say everything, I mean everything except for only one thing, which is the indicator light. So because of the indicator light, we cannot do it without the control box. I decided to move on to the next task, which is fuel gauge. The fuel gauge always, when I start the car, is always on full, even though the car is not full. What I managed to do yesterday is remove fuel gauge from the fuel tank, which looked like it has no problem or no issue. So I've decided to go to the wires. So I took the purple wire and I connected to the other purple wire that is behind the cluster, so that the cluster will show the signal about the fuel was the fuel pressure. Because the fuel is low, I'm not really sure if I should say this is accurate, because to me it is not accurate, but it's no longer saying the car is full. The wire is not correct. It's not really connected the way it's supposed to, but I think I'm on to fixing the issue. Let me start by starting the car and you will see the petrol gauge. It no longer says full, it just remains at that point. So we are on to something. In here I have a small amount of petrol, so I'm going to pour it in the car and see if the gauge will move or the gauge will remain the same. So the gauge just moved a little bit, but not too much. I don't actually trust the gauge, to be honest, so I'm going to take the gauge thing over there, the one that I took out yesterday. So I'm going to take it out again and see, and I'm going to gauge it myself. If the gauge moves, then I know that we are on the good, but if it doesn't move, then we're still lost. I just can't believe it, guys. The gauge is now working. It's working, but I don't know how. Well, I do, but I don't know how. Well, it's like when I move this part over here, it totally moves over here. So it seems this wire actually worked, but I still have to do the ground to make sure that the ground works perfectly. But here we don't have a ground, so I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I can see that the gauge, it is working. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to try to find a way to do it better. So since the fuel gauge now works perfectly, I've tested the fuel gauge with a thing and I saw that it works perfectly. Now what I'm going to do, since the control box, as you can see, I have hot wired here at the control box, because I think the control box is not receiving power. So I just hot powered it from there, and now the only thing that is left on this car is the indicators are the ones that are not working on this car. Now almost everything on this car works perfectly except for the indicators, and I have a solution, but the solution is not an OEM solution, and I think majority of the solutions that I do have on this car are not really OEM, but they do work. The aim is to make it work with no problems. So I'm not even sure if I should do the method that I'm thinking of doing, or should try another method or another way that I could do it. Looks like it's getting dark, and I'm suggesting that I should do the number plate light also. So I'm planning on doing the both number plate light so that they work when all of the lights are working. I'm going to leave the car as a mess like this, and I'm going to end the video here because I won't have time to record the video. After Christmas after Christmas is the time that is when I'll be having the time to record videos. So for now, that's just a short clip of me doing the wiring. We are close to being done with the wiring, because we are only left with, I thought we are left with one thing, but we are left with two things, which is the wipers and the indicators, and what else? And I think is the water pressure and the oil pressure. Those are the two. Well, not really two, I don't know how to count, but those are the four. Well, those are the things that we need to do on this car to complete it. So for now, I'm just going to leave the video here, and we'll continue the video on another day. So for now, if you have enjoyed or the video was informative, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And yeah, what we managed to do today is make sure that the brake light work perfectly. We made sure that the light, the lights at the rear works perfectly. We made sure that the gauge works kind of perfectly, but it does work the way I think I'm satisfied. And we have found some wires, such as the alternator wires and other wires, that we will need to connect on the next video. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.